Good morning. Welcome to everybody here, and we have about the same attendance online on webinar right now. So that's awesome. So 60 or so people participating, which does tell me there's great interest in this. So huge pressure on Kyle here. So be ready. Welcome. My name is Tim Benz. I'm president of the Minnesota Independent School Forum. We're thrilled that you're all here, joining us today in person or online. Just to get a sense of this, I did a quick little tally, and maybe it's not 100% right, but it's close to 100% right. 45 of our member schools are participating today, so that's pretty sweet. That's just a little short of a third, so that's a great sign. We'd love to see that engagement. We always tell people when we see you, use us, right? We're here for your resources. We're here for the benefits that we offer, so please use us. Please attend things. For those of you attending on the webinar and anybody here in person, this webinar is being recorded as well. We always archive those on the backside of our website, so you'll have a link to that, so you can download it later for whatever you need for any information or share it with staff. The materials are posted as well, so you'll have all that. Thrilled to do this. Just a couple of quick updates that you may want to know. We're coming in, obviously, the first half of the year. Membership is staying strong for our schools. We literally are right at where we ended last year. We have 9 new member schools, and we have 9 that didn't renew, which is actually a good thing. Our retention rate year to year has gone from 89, 90% to 94 the last 2 years. So we are thrilled about that. Thank you for staying strong with us, and those of you who are new member schools. Our goal is to get out to see you in person sometime in the first year. So if we get to a certain point and you're wondering why we haven't been out to you, let me know that. We've got you on a board in our office. We know who you are, so we'll find you. So we're thrilled to do that. We're very excited to have Kyle here present. Just a quick note about Mission Advancement. They've been alongside MISF for a number of years, providing us great consultation along the way, but also providing some really quality professional development in this area for our schools. So we're thrilled that they have come alongside us, been great partners in this. I know a handful of you have used them in your schools, and they've just been great to work alongside. They get our schools, which is wonderful. And they've been in our schools, and they've worked at our schools, so it's a great thing. So just first, I want to recognize and acknowledge Sunrise Banks with this great training room. This is sweet. I wouldn't say Lisa, I wouldn't say we stumbled across it, but Lisa knew about this training room, checked into it. Great opportunity. Parking, I know, is a little challenge, but that's okay. Where isn't it? But just a great resource and a great facility, so we're thrilled with that. Also want to thank Mission Advancement as well for sponsoring this as well. They provided us funding, again, to keep our offerings affordable for everybody. So again, they're sponsoring this, and we're thrilled to have them do that. So I'll do a quick introduction here of Kyle. For the past 20 years, Kyle Queel has served in various capacities within the nonprofit space, including teaching, starting and leading a ministry at Park Cities Presbyterian Church, and serving as Director of Development and then Head of School for the Covenant School of Dallas. Just prior to joining MAP, he worked for the largest public charter school organization in Texas, Responsive Education Solutions, serving as Vice President of Learning and Leadership Development. Kyle is a native of North Texas who grew up in the Lakewood area of East Dallas. Probably a Cowboys fan. That's okay. He earned a BA degree in History and Philosophy from UT Austin and an MA in Religious Studies from the University of Virginia. He and his wife Sarah live in Richardson, Texas with their 3 great kids, Molly, Sam, Sophie, and their dog, Lucy. I also want to add this for anybody who has a question if you're on the webinar, but feel free to pop that in at any time. We'll take those at the end, and we'll keep monitoring that. So great. Kyle, thrilled to have you. Thank you for joining us.
Well, Tim, thank you so much, Tim, Michelle, and Lisa. Great to be with you all. One just slight update on the family biography there. Our oldest daughter is no longer at home. She's actually a sophomore at a little school over in Indiana called Notre Dame. So yes, I've got tickets to the Cotton Bowl. So hopefully none of you are haters, but if you are, don't hold that against me. All right. It is good to be with you all. Let me just introduce a couple of my colleagues before we kind of jump in. Greg Schuyler, who's a consultant with Mission Advancement and a native, former Director of Development at St. Croix Lutheran. Great to be here with you, Greg. And then Karen Rose, who is our regional manager of the Minneapolis-St. Paul team. We have another colleague, Jack Kelly, who's home ill, but he was going to be here. But we've got a team on the ground. We love Minneapolis-St. Paul. Strangely, we've always had a presence here, and we really are excited about being here today. So my name is Kyle Queel, and I have spent the majority of my life in my career in and around private independent education. And when I think of education and I think of Minnesota, I think back to my brief experience in the charter school world. And I think some of you would know this. The charter schools are an interesting, category, as we all know, and sometimes a competitor with private and independent schools. At least in Texas, that's the case. Did you know the first charter school started in Minnesota to offer innovative, alternative educational options to children who weren't being perhaps serviced appropriately or accommodated in traditional public education? But as I thought about that, and I thought about your group, isn't it the case that independent schools for decades, if not St. John's, 163 years, have been offering innovative and accommodating alternatives to children who need options? And so kudos to all the work you're doing. I wish you continued success. Let me just get a flavor for kind of who's in the room. I know we have people on the webinar, and I'm sorry, people on the webinar, you hopefully can hear me, but you can't respond to me, and you're not enjoying this amazing lunch that we're enjoying or with this great group of people. But listen, you get what you pay for, right? And so, that was a bad, okay, thank you. Lisa's like, no, sorry, yeah, move on. Okay. Yeah, but it's great to have you. In webinar, people do know that you're going to be able to obviously submit questions and the like, so we're not going to neglect you. You're going to have a chance to participate. But for those in the room, I just want to get a flavor for kind of who's here. So let me ask you a few questions, and just slip up your hand if you would. So how many of you are in a formal development fundraising advancement role? Raise your hand if you would. Okay. How many of you have more than 5 people in your development advancement shop? More than 5. How many of you have more than 8? Anyone? Okay. More than 5, a handful. How many of you have just 2 to 4 or 2 to 5 in your advancement shop? Okay. Anybody here just a one person operation? You wear that hat as well as you unclog toilets and you teach math to 4th graders, and you also get to do carpool duty and PE recess. Few of you? Yeah, I feel your pain. Blessings to you all. Okay, so that gives me an idea as to kind of how many heads of schools or principals? Anybody like that here? Interesting. Okay. Okay, good. Well, I am a recovering head of school, so I've been fine. In fact, let me just say this. When I started in development, I worked for a private independent school in Dallas, and it never had a full-time development officer. So they didn't know what they were doing, and quite frankly, I really didn't know what I was doing. They didn't have an office for me. So I had to be at the reception desk of a board member for an entire summer. It's an oil and gas firm. I was literally working at his reception desk until I finally talked the head of school in to letting me convert a janitorial closet at the church where they were renting space into a development office. And so I, for a long time, worked out of a closet. So I know what it's like to be a one-man shop. I know what it's like to be in a situation where perhaps you don't even have a formal development office. But I also know what it's like to be in a situation where you've got perhaps a century of legacy and heritage and hundreds, if not thousands, of alumni and a robust development operation in place, and everywhere in between. So one of the challenges and opportunities, obviously, talking to a mixed group like this is, I don't want to bore you all who are veterans in fundraising, but I also don't want to overwhelm anyone who's just kind of drinking from a fire hose. So I hope that what we talk about today is going to give everyone something that isn't just really theoretical, but is actually very immediately actionable. I mean, it's December, what's the date? December 6th? Yeah. December 6th. So how many days are in December? 31 minus 6 is 25. 25. Is that right? Is that right? Anyway, I'm not even going to tell you how I've already messed up with Tim, a big kind of stat. I'm not going there. Okay. Now, hey, I don't pretend to know it all. So, but you got like 25 days. You've got to push. It looks kind of carve, about a week off of that because you're going to hopefully take a breather for the holidays. You still have time to use some of what we're going to talk about today to engage a handful of key donors who might increase their end-of-year giving in a significant way because of what you do in a way that you perhaps wouldn't have done. It's a possibility. My hope is that today there's going to be something for everyone. Okay, so any questions about kind of ground rules of engagement? I want to be done, Lisa, by 12:45 at the latest? 12:30? No. 1. But with plenty of time for Q&A, and within our world, mission advancement, we're kind of pathologically punctual, and so the last thing I want to do is go late. So I'd rather go early than leave you plenty of time. So, here we are, mission advancement. Here I'm clicking. We'll talk more about mission advancement. Now, let me just say this: the P is silent. It's mission like, why? Where's the P? What's the P? It's professionals, but that sounds wrong. Where's the mission? Okay.
Okay.
Here we go. Maybe I'm in the way. Yeah, but how about the Cowboys? Look, I pulled for the Vikings. I like the Vikings. But I do like the Packers as well. I'm not a Bears fan. Do not like the Redskins. Oh, here we are. Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, so we're today talking about crafting the donor's story. Crafting. How many of you all have been in fundraising for more than 10 years? In some capacity. How many of you have been in it for more than 20 years? Anyone? Okay, so we got some people who obviously know what they're doing. How many of you have been in it for anywhere from kind of 0 to 5 years? Okay, excellent. Look, fundraising, I sometimes joke, right? We're gonna put the fun in fundraising. Fundraising for a lot of people, for most people, is about as like off-putting as public speaking or, going to get like a colonoscopy or something. I mean, I raised an eyebrow like Tim. I'm just trying to push the envelope to see what I can get away with. My colleagues are like, please be quiet. No. But fundraising for a lot of people is very intimidating. Who wants to ask other people for money? Right? So, what can you do? Well, so, the paradigm for me was back when Skylar Lehman, who founded MAC, who I engaged actually when I was in private school, to help us with the diagnostic and capital campaign, he totally changed my paradigm when it came to inviting other people to invest in a worthwhile mission, which I know we have so many different schools in the world of MIS, and so many different methodologies, so many different heritages, so many different populations served. And to me, every one of you has an amazing story to tell that's different, that's unique, that's powerful, that's compelling. And we begin to think about simply sharing that compelling story in ways that resonate with people's hearts. It's a natural opportunity to ask if they're blessed with capacity to do so, to consider helping advance that mission. It's not about putting money in your pocket, right? It's about advancing a worthwhile cause. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So perhaps some new and creative ways, cost-effective ways. What we're going to talk about today is not super fancy, and it's not expensive. You can do what we talk about today without spending a dime. So what I want to talk about this in this way is I want to set the stage by first framing up what you all know from 5th or 6th grade English, right? If not sooner. The elements of a story. So when you think about what makes a good story, what are some of the elements of a good story? Who said that? I want to come back to you, Sarah. Problem. You got the characters. You got the setting. Somebody said plot. Sarah said problem or conflict. If you don't remember anything else today, I want you to think in perhaps a new way for many of you. Think about the importance of conflict and how you go about developing relationships with your donors. Because conflict in a donor story, as that donor story interfaces with your school story, is, we think, the key. And look, many of us don't like conflict. In fact, I joked before, if you like conflict, you should probably go see a therapist. But a lot of us are, we're passive aggressive or is that, what do you call it, Minnesota? I don't know, I've learned about Minnesota nice. In Texas, you got kind of southern, all smiles and you're stabbing each other in the back. So a lot of people are passive aggressive. I've seen this before. I'm sure it's not the case with any of your schools. Some institutions, particularly educational institutions, can be kind of institutionalized passive aggressive. To me, board meetings are great places for conflict. That's another workshop. But I think there's a place for healthy conflict, healthy disagreement. You care about what you're debating. You care about the problem, as you put it, Sarah. We're going to really hone in on that. And then resolution. The solution to the conflict. Okay, so we're going to talk about an amazing story. Any of you remember 1977 Star Wars, the original? So I know in the grand scheme of things, it's like the middle or something. I've lost track. Any of you seen the original Star Wars? I would guess. Wait, hold on. I've got a few millennials in the room. You're like, Star Wars, what's that? They've also never heard of the Beatles. No, I'm just joking. Sir, have some of you not seen the movie Star Wars? Okay, I'm going to ask you to raise your hand if you've never seen the movie Star Wars. If you can just leave the room, please. Wow. That's shocking to me. Okay. But, today you're going to learn, if nothing else, about Star Wars. Okay, so, and this is going to be a little off, but let's just play with it. One of the major characters is obviously Luke Skywalker, the hero. He's here to rescue us. You've got the villain. If you only knew the power of the Force. And then you've got the advisor, who I didn't realize in kind of reviewing this is not in the original Star Wars movie. I think it's Return of the Jedi that he comes up to the scene. So this is a little off. So don't hold my feet to the fire on this. But he does become, in the grand scheme of things, the advisor, right? Okay. This is a poster from the original Star Wars. I will say it reflects very closely the sheets on my bed as he comes forward. It's true. I had a crush for a long time in Princess Leia. It's about the honey buns. Okay, so let's look at the elements of the story. Things like he's never coming back. Character settings, plot, conflict resolution. We're going to do a little group exercise. I hope it makes you slightly uncomfortable. No, it'll be fun. So what I want you to do is find a partner. Somebody, 1 or 2, 3 of you next to each other. And sorry, on the webinar, you can just do this kind of on your own, write it out. But I want you to just kind of sketch out the basic outline of the original 1977 Star Wars movie story. Let me give you a few minutes to do so. And then I'm going to call on a couple of you to see if you can kind of fill it out. Okay? Okay, here you go. Ready, set, go. Yes, again, it's using characters, settings, plot, conflict resolution. And if you've never seen the movie, you might want to find somebody who's seen the movie. Okay, let's go and jump in and see if we can fill this out. Any group feel like they nailed it? You got it. Anybody feel like you got the basic outlines of the Star Wars story? You want to volunteer? Okay, you got to answer yourself. Who's supposed to? Okay. Oh, sure. If you want to stand and tell us who you are.
Okay, I just was revealed as a true Star Wars geek. So, what was the question?
Just review for us, if you would, the basic elements of the, I'm looking for the 1977 original Star Wars film.
Yeah, oh yeah.
The first, the best one.
I got it.
Okay, talk to us.
We can get far into
Okay.
this.
Well, you can lean on the group to help kind of fill out some stuff.
Okay, characters.
Who are the main characters? We don't want like R2D2, C3PO level.
Luke, Leia, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Han, Solo, Chewbacca, and Darth Vader.
Nice. Is she bringing anybody? Okay, good stuff. Okay, let's go. What about settings? You want to add to that, or anybody else want to kind of jump in? Any guys settings? The basic setting is what?
A long time ago in a galaxy far, far
There
away.
you
Love
go.
it. Love it.
Yeah, got into the weeds on this one.
Okay. Yeah, might drop a mic and walk out. Okay, what's the plot? What's going on in the story?
light versus dark.
Okay, break it down a little more though. What's the specific
The
action?
force, the light force versus
Yeah.
the dark
Okay.
force, and which is more powerful.
What's happening in the galaxy
The
though?
galaxy, there's a rebellion.
There's a rebellion.
against the bad empire.
The rebellion, of course, you have Princess Leia, Luke Skywalker, Han Solo on the rebel side, fighting against the Empire. What is the Empire building?
A Death Star.
What's the Death Star capable of doing?
Going up
The Death Star is
I'm sorry.
it's capable of blowing up other planets. What? So that's a conflict. Okay, now what's your name?
Laura.
One last question, and I have to sit down. Thank you for being on the slide. What's the resolution? How is the conflict as the evil empire led by Darth Vader,
They
and that
blew
other
it up.
guy that like could?
Yeah.
They're building this Death Star that could potentially blow up the entire planet, including the one inhabited by the rebels. And so the rebels are trying to basically save their people, save their planet. How is this conflict solved?
A ragtag bunch of rebels blew up the Star Destroyer, not the Star Destroyer. Death Star, thank you. By hitting something that wasn't bigger than a wombat.
And it led this amazing chain reaction in the Death Star exploded.
And Darth Vader spun off.
Nice. And it's like the next 10 movies. All right. Thank you. Let's give it up. Give it a hand. Simple story, right? In a way, great story. Resonates with all of us on some level. If you've not seen it, you got to see it this weekend, right? But it's got the basic elements. So I want you to kind of be thinking about those basic elements as we get into the specifics of what we're here today to talk about. So what I want to do is suggest this, that as you think about your school, as you think about donors connected to your school, you got to step back and think about the big picture. What is the story here that we're telling? What's the story that's going on currently? What's the story that the donor is playing? What's the story that they could be playing? Hello, Pedro.
How's it going?
Going well. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Maybe Michelle can put something on the webinar. Okay, we're good. All right. So what I suggest is this. Let's step back and go a little further. You've heard this kind of language. Some of you might find this off-putting, and I get it. We don't want to talk about our parents or our students as clients or customers, but who is your customer? Who is your customer? Now, you might say our students are our customers. I, as a former school leader, quite frankly, would suggest that at the end of the day, your faculty and staff are your first customer. I'm a big fan, ISN and Digital Management, great organization, of the notion that a school culture is directly the overflow of the culture your faculty is at. So I really believe that. But when it comes to fundraising, when it comes to kind of this conversation, let's talk about this. Let's talk about those served directly by the mission of your school, the beneficiaries. In your case, who would that be?
Students and families.
Thank you. Hello? Students and families. Okay. Anyone else directly served by the mission of your school? Students and families, the beneficiaries. This is where it gets interesting in a private, independent school. Those who fund and support the mission, the benefactors. How many of your schools charge tuition? Does anyone here not charge tuition? Yeah, hence you're here. What's really beautiful and wonderfully complex about private independent schools in Minnesota and elsewhere is that you are in that in-between world where you have tuition-paying families who are benefactors and beneficiaries, right? In any private independent school, you're going to have a real range of those individuals. And in fact, I'll never forget years ago, so I'm from North Texas, and I had a meeting with the director of financial aid and development. It was financial aid and admissions at St. Mark's. You know St. Mark's School of Texas. It's a fairly well-known independent boys school. It's been there for like 120 years. And he talked about the struggle they were having. He called it the barbell effect. And he says, we have, this is a school, day school, first grade tuition's like in the upper 20s. I think senior tuition's like 32. And some of you may be there. But he said, we've got a situation where basically, well endowed, he said, we've got one end of the spectrum where parents could pay, doesn't matter, right? Tuition could be 30, could be 50, could be 75. It's irrelevant to their financial situation. Their kid's going to go to school. And then you've got the other end of the spectrum. You've got those kids who they're not going to St. Mark's. They're bright students. They should academically qualify. But they don't have two pennies to rub together. If they go to St. Mark's, if they go to your school, it's got to be completely all-inclusive. We're talking not just tuition, not just financial aid, full tuition, not just tuition, full subsidization of everything. If you're playing basketball, that means basketball shoes. If you're playing football, that means cleats. You get the point. He said the problem that they were facing, the struggle, was in the middle. I used to call them MINKS, M-I-N-K-S, middle-income families with numerous kids. Right? I'll never forget a dad who took me out to lunch once years ago. He had 4 kids in our school, paying full tuition. He's in commercial real estate, kind of feast, famine cycle of income. He did pretty well, but he wasn't, he didn't have a private jet. And he says, you know how much money I'm having to pay for this tuition pre-tax? And my jaw kind of dropped. I hadn't thought about it quite that way. 3 of his 4 children were really struggling academically. So imagine what was their home life like in the evenings and on the weekends? You've heard stories, you've been there, not pleasant. You got families who are paying full tuition, you got families who were on significant financial aid, you got families in the middle who were barely scraping by to get here, right? So when it comes to this question of your customers, it's very interesting. Your benefactors and beneficiaries on some level in certain nonprofits are very distinct. Think a homeless organization. But in a private independent school, it's closer to the right end of the spectrum, where most of your benefactors are going to in some way or another overlap with your beneficiaries. So let's talk about your school story. So I want you to think about where's most of your support going to come from. It's likely going to come from people connected to your school as current families, as former families, obviously as foundations, as community organizations or advocates who support your mission and vision. But they've got to have a relationship to your school. They've got to have some story to tell that connects them to your school. So I want you to think about your school story. How many of your schools have been around for over 100 years? Okay, that's amazing. That's awesome. How many of your schools have been around for somewhere between 50 to 100 years? Any, say, between 25 to 50 years? Any newer than 25 years? Any newer than 10 years? Wow. Any newer than like 5 years? Okay. The schools that have been around for 10 years or less, raise your hands again. Tell me your schools, I'm just curious.
Community of Saints in West St. Paul, but it is a regional school.
Okay.
It came from schools that were present much longer.
Okay, got a birth from some other pre-existing schools, and what about you?
We're Notre Dame Academy, and it's the same community.
Okay, very cool. So as you talk about your story, whether you're 10 years old or whether you're 163 years old, the way I think about it in terms of your mission is why you exist. It's the reason for your existence. But when I think about the word vision, and I know these words are tossed around a lot, mission, vision, I got to think about your preferred future. Where are you headed? Whether you've been around for 10 years, whether you've been around for 163 years, where are you headed? And these are important when it comes to crafting a donor story. Because we're going to see a donor needs to see themselves as a critical character in your school's untold story. Let me say that again because I think it's so important. A donor, your donor, needs to see themselves as a critical character in your school's untold story. A story without them, you may not be able to actually tell. Are you feeling what Sarah touched on earlier? What we would say the problem or the conflict? A donor needs to recognize that they actually do have, it's not manipulative, it's not artificial, it's genuine. They have the ability, the capacity, the position, the opportunity to play a determining factor in your school's untold story. And then the question to ask is, what if they don't? What then happens? They need to feel that viscerally, emotionally, existentially. So what is your school's future? I hope you all can articulate in a kind of elevator, 30 words or less explanation as to your school's mission. Let's face it, some schools' mission statements are way too long. Some are meaningless. Some nonprofit organizations have some really wacky mission statements. We're working with one, I will not name it, that literally in the mission statement says, we serve those we serve. I just hope you do that with excellence. Wait, is this being recorded? I think it is. But look, you hopefully know your mission, but the question is, do you know where you're headed? We work with mostly the bread and butter of our work, 75% private school. The bulk of that is capital campaigns. You would be shocked, maybe you wouldn't be. How many of you have been involved in a capital campaign? I'm somewhat shocked at how many, it's the right way, how many school boards can decide they want to have a capital campaign. They want to move into the future. They want to raise billions of dollars in this extraordinary effort. They want to hire consultants to help them do it. And 6-12 months into the effort, they're still not really sure what their vision is, or why they are doing this, or where they're headed, what exactly it is they need. There are a lot of schools, because of perhaps the challenges of board leadership or school leadership and the like, that don't necessarily have a clear vision. One of my favorite little sayings is, what's smoke in the pulpit is fog in the pews. If there's not clarity among your board and school leadership, if there's not clarity there at that top level of those closest to your school, there's not going to be clarity further out in the organization of your school, among your constituents, among those you serve, among your faculty, staff, among your parents, among your broader community. There's got to be clarity of vision. Where are you headed? And then you've got to think about the stories of those in relationship to your school. I wish, if I could kind of wave a magic wand, it'd be awesome to go have a beer with each of you and talk about, tell me about your story. Tell me about how you got connected to your school. Because every one of you has a uniquely different story about how you got connected to your school. And even if you're sitting right next to someone else from your school, your story's radically different likely than their story. A really great exercise, throw this in, a little freebie, that you might consider doing with your board if you're in a position to work directly with your board. Or you might consider this as a suggestion to your head of school, is to, if you have a board that's languishing, that's struggling, that's kind of ineffective, if maybe they think they're doing well, but they're not really on board, they're not excited about their role, they seem to have lost their vision or passion for their service, consider a board meeting where you remind them of kind of the past of your school, the heritage, some of the celebrations, some of the challenges. You remind them of where you are and where you want to head. And then you ask them. You really ask them. You see the elements of the story. Tell us about how you got connected to this place. Sometimes you forget. It's like in marriage. Sometimes you forget why you fell in love to begin with. Sometimes board members forget. Perhaps sometimes staff forget why you got excited to begin with about the mission of your school. Everybody has a story to tell. So when it comes to relationship-based fundraising and cultivating the donor story, we're talking about storytelling. We're talking about engaging prospective donors in terms of their story with your school story at this top of the pyramid. You all know, if you've been in fundraising at all, the pyramid is overused. It's the preferred geometrical shape of anyone in development. We know this. There's a reason for that. It's because it's true. It reflects the way kind of things are. There's a kind of natural law to just the world of how it works. And the way we would put it is, when it comes to what we really kind of emphasize, relationship-based fundraising, not mass marketing, not social media appeals, not blast, not spray and pray, not that those may not have their place, but you're going to find the greatest opportunity for significant transformational growth in advancing your school's mission does not come through marketing events. It does not come through big asks to big groups of people that are transactional in nature. It comes through more specific, strategic, personal, selective relationships with those who have capacity and commitment to your organization. They're exclusive. Most people connected to your school can't have that kind of experience with your school at that level. Right? So this means you have to be discriminating. You have to be selective as to whose story you craft. You can't do what we're talking about today with most of your donors. Let me just put it that way. So we're trying to really focus on what we would call the transformational level, where you involve major principal plan, eventually plan gifts. I mean, let's face it, how many of y'all have a pretty strong plan giving program at your school? That's one area some schools do. Of course, that's in some ways the most difficult thing to grow. That's, endowments, those are very tough, right? But when you think about relationship-based fundraising, you think about transformational, long-term, game-changing giving, bequests, estates, plan giving, those are the apex of relationship-based fundraising. How someone wants to leave their legacy, how somebody wants to change the future story of their school, even when their future is ended on earth, right? We'll leave metaphysics aside, but I mean, the point is, legacy giving is really a way for a donor to extend their future to the future of your institution. It's the pinnacle, the culmination of everything we're talking about today. But we're not going to get to that today. Okay, so what's the logic behind this approach? And then we're going to drill down into crafting donor stories. The logic is this. We believe major principal planned gifts come from deep personal relationships built over time. You know this. You don't go into a bar as a single person and just go up to the first person you meet and get down on one knee and ask them to marry you. I hope you don't do that. Not likely to generate the kind of response or long-term quality relationship you're in. Right? Usually, if you're in a serious relationship that culminates in some kind of marriage commitment, there's a lot of dating, courtship, investment. You know, when you pop the question, the likely response, right? That's kind of the way we like to think about it when it comes to crafting a donor story. When you get to the point where you're finally inviting a donor to invest significantly in your school in solving a problem, you know they're ready. You know they're ready. Because you've had that deep personal relationship. We believe relationships find a natural balance. You get out of a relationship what you put into it. The extent to which you invest in it determines the return. The good news is this. In my view, maybe you've had this experience. If somebody out of the blue drops by the school office, and tell me if you've ever had this experience, and drops off a check for $25,000 unsolicited. Anybody had something like this happen? Okay, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool in a way. Now, it's a little concerning if they weren't in a relationship or in someone's portfolio. It's just kind of out of the blue. They drop off a check for $25,000. Is that a transformational gift or a transactional gift? What if the gift is $250,000? Transformational or transactional? I mean, the effect of what you might be able to do with $250,000 may be transformational, but the way in which it's given is transactional. The beauty of that is anytime, you know this, anytime somebody gives a gift that's transactional in nature, but more than just kind of insignificant in size, flag that person, please, and go out of your way to really begin to thank them and develop a significant, meaningful relationship. Because what are they telling you? If they're able to drop off a $25,000 check out of the blue when unsolicited or uncultivated, what could that person potentially do if they were actually brought deeply into the mission and vision of your school story? That person is positioned to give significantly to your school. So the extent to which you invest in a relationship determines the return on that relationship. So in storyboarding, and I kind of touched on this earlier, as you think about the portfolio you manage, as you think about the prospects in your schools, communities, you think about the current donors, I hope you have some sense of those who are giving, but who are perhaps not giving in the capacity they could give. I mean, we all have donors like that, right? We know people who are in connection to our school who are giving, maybe they're faithful donors. But we know their true love is St. Kate's or St. Thomas or the U. Am I learning this correctly? The U, which is currently not the University of Texas, also an alma mater, but University of Minnesota. You know that there are community donors who love these organizations, and there are many great organizations we know in this area, and all over the state of Minnesota. But you know that your school is not within their top 3 philanthropic partners. And you know they can give so much more. I hope they're on your list. Those are the kind of people that deserve a lead role in this play, as it were. So should some donors play a lead role? Yes. Yes. In other words, some donors, let's just say it, and this may offend some of you, it shouldn't, because I'll try to explain it with some qualifications and caveats. Are some donors more important than others? Yeah, they are. How many of you are formal, like actual development professionals, like that's what you wake up doing and breathing and getting kind of paid for? Handful of you? Okay. Whether that's your formal role or whether that's just part of what you do, I mean, think of it this way. It's your job, it's your calling, to find funds to advance the worthwhile mission of your school. There are a lot of great people out there who might give, right? Who might have widow's mites gifts that are significant and sacrificial to them, but are not in a significant way to advance the mission of your school in the way that a millionaire or billionaire could do so in relationship to your school. So if your job is to actually raise funds to advance the mission of your school, then it makes sense that you want to focus in a very selective way on those individuals who have the capacity to raise funds and give funds at a more transformational level, which by definition is a handful of people. Most of us don't have that capacity. There's a hierarchy of importance here relative to your donors that you've got to keep in mind. Now, please don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm not saying that the people who stretch to give a gift to the annual fund, or who stretch to sell that cookie dough or wrapping paper, which, God forbid, I hope you don't do, but if you do, talk to me afterwards. Are they less important? Are they not equal? No, of course, that's not what we're saying. We're not saying somehow they're secondary human beings, right? I'm not making, again, a metaphysical claim here. I'm just saying, relative to your job, there are some people who are more important when it comes to fundraising than others. I can't be I don't think because of their financial capacity and their potential for impact. You could spend the day, if you're a development officer, major gifts, you could spend five days a day hanging out, having coffee with 5 really nice people who are parents or alumni from your school, who altogether might get the total of $1,500 annually, right? Or you could spend, and that's easy. Our natural temptation is to do that, which is easy. That's easy, right? Especially with friends, if you like them, if they're fun. Or you could spend 5 meetings a day with people who may be kind of difficult, maybe a little high maintenance, maybe demanding, but who actually could fund your entire annual fund together that one day, right? From gifts that they could potentially get. Yeah, some are more important. So your job, in our view, is to cast the best characters to fund the mission. So when you craft the donor story, let's go through about 5 things that I think we want to think about specifically that can be very applicable and actionable. You got to understand where the story begins. What do you know about a prospective donor? Now, I want you to think right now about somebody who could fall into this category, because we're going to do a little exercise later where you're actually going to flesh this out. But I want you to think about a prospective donor. I want you to ask, what's their connection to your mission? Are they a current parent? Are they a alum parent? Are they an alum? This is, again, someone that's got significant financial capacity. They're warm to your mission. Don't think of someone right now whose kid just got expelled. And you're talking to somebody who had to expel once the board chair's son. You're talking to somebody who once had to expel a son of one of our capital campaign co-chairs who had not completely finished paying out his pledge. He did, actually, which is pretty amazing. Great guy. That's tough. You're getting choked up. You've done this. She's like, my child just got expelled. And I'm really, no, are you all right? You're getting, okay. You start turning purple, so they call 911. Okay. See, what's the connection? You hope they're in a relationship. We're talking about people who are in a relationship and who are warm to your mission. And I do know in school settings that can be tricky. Quick story. Client of ours, private in a school, finishing a $20 million campaign this fall public space. Years ago, they weren't using our council, went prematurely to parents who had significant capacity, 6-7 figure level, had a school ask parents for a gift. Without proper cultivation, without proper knowledge, without proper understanding of where they're coming from. Only in that meeting, we can see where this may be going. Did this mom basically rip the head of school's head off because of how they mishandled a situation with their child who had learning differences about 4 years ago from this time. It's been seething. How in the world do you sit down with parents and ask them for $1 million gift and not know that that's a major issue to address well before you ever get to a point of dare asking them for that kind of commitment? You think they gave? No. But the good news is it led to some reconciliation. And often we do see that happen. You're dealing in the relationship business. You got to sometimes deal with the junk of past issues unresolved. But sometimes development provides a great platform for that to be resolved, especially capital. You need to know about their past commitment and involvement. What specific aspects of the mission do they really like? I was in a capital campaign meeting yesterday in Fort Worth, Texas, with a private school that works with kids with significant learning differences and dyslexia. Great school, near and dear to my heart. Love what they're doing. One of the members of the campaign committee was concerned because they're having to kind of value engineer some of the plans for the campus, including removing a fence. And he was really concerned about the safety aspect of not having the fence. I'm writing down notes. This guy likes the fence. We're going to present a fence proposal to him. He likes and wants to help fund that fence. What's the access and influence with this prospect? What's the perceived giving capacity? These are the kind of things you need to think of. By the way, no, you're going to get all these slides, so hopefully, yeah, you know that. What's the backstory? If we don't know the answers, you need to build time for discovery. Now, I realize some of you may not feel like you've got that time, but relationships take obvious effort. Determine how the story will end. Think about this donor that's come to mind. Think about where you want to take them, even over the next couple of weeks, if possible. You know, sometimes it's not always that the 2 points between, or the distance between 2 points is a straight line. You know that's the quickest distance. But sometimes when it comes to fundraising and the dynamics of relationships, you know this. It's usually not linear. It's usually all over the place, right? But you got to figure out where you want to end up with the donor. Can you know what they will give? I mean, if we can figure that out, we can make bukus of money. We don't know what donors are going to give. We can only kind of determine what they might be able to give and with some degree of educated guess what they perhaps are ready to give. I was talking to somebody earlier who said, well, we have a donor we're going to go see, I think, later today. We asked him for a significant gift, but we don't think they'll give it. And I said, why do you think that? Maybe they will. She said, no, he said they will. I said, okay, that's good knowledge. In that case, you have more than an educated guess, right? Yeah, we know they could give, and that's often how we put it. Somebody could give this, but would they give it? I mean, if you think about it this way, the work of fundraising is closing the gap between could and would. I mean, it sounds kind of simple, but that's kind of what it is. They could give it, but would they? Not yet. What would it take for them to do so? That's the question to ask. We must factor in the value that we can add to the equation, develop comfort with not knowing. There's a lot of mystery and anxiety potentially in this world, and develop confidence in what we can influence, right? Identify the conflict. Let's talk about this for a few minutes. The conflict in the story. This is key. You've got the plot, you've got the conflict, you've got the resolution. The conflict, we believe, in development is often the most overlooked element in crafting a donor story. Because some people just don't think about it in these terms. Again, this really raises the question of what role can a person play in telling the untold story of your school? What's the problem? What's the issue that they can help solve, without which your school's mission is not going to be able to advance in the same way? And let's face it, without conflict, a story is boring. And you guys know some of the best stories have not just one conflict, they've got multiple layers of conflict that play off of each other. Just when you think the story is being resolved, some new elements thrown into the mix. So what is conflict? It's a problem to solve, an opportunity to seize, a challenge to overcome, something measurable to resolve. So as you think about conflict for your schools, you think about right now, do any of you have a conflict that you're seeking to solve from a funding perspective? Is there anything pressing that you've got to really raise money for? Maybe it's a conflict of, look, we're short. We've got to raise our fiscal year ends December 31. And we are $150,000 short of reaching our goal. That's a conflict. Now, that's kind of a boring conflict. You got to kind of unpack that. And if you have that kind of situation, you got to think, are there fundable opportunities within that $150,000 that are more concrete that I could carve out and present to a donor who I know has a heart for that particular opportunity? Right? Maybe there's a technology budget line item for $25,000 for computers that maybe you've already purchased, but you've had to pay for them out of tuition revenue, and if you could repackage that opportunity to a donor who you know loves technology, they could potentially respond between now and the end of the year. You get the point. Any of you also have a conflict that's kind of concrete, that's one you'd be willing briefly to share? Yes?
We are a boarding school, and since 1977 we've had girls at the boarding school, but they have not been attached to our school. So currently our girls walk across St. John's University campus. So they're 14, 15-year-olds to get to school, and so there's an inequity issue that it's cold and they have to walk clear across campus, but our boys are connected via a tunnel, and so we have a conflict where we would like to have the girls and the boys in one facility with dividers and safety and security where they're not having to walk.
So I'm going to repeat that for the folks on the webinar. In essence, a school that is looking to have a solution to a conflict where girls and boys don't have equity in terms of campus access and looking to, sounds like a capital project of some kind, where you build a building, you can bring your male and female students together, and have, equitable space. That's a conflict. Was there a hand over here?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
A new boiler and a leaking roof.
Okay, those are real conflicts. A new boiler and a leaky roof. You have a price tag on those?
Yeah, like $600,000.
Oh goodness, yeah, that's, sometimes you call ugly money. But it's important. You got to raise that kind of money to do. We have a colleague who's down in San Antonio. Her first project in development with this client that we used to work with was to raise $500,000 for a septic tank. There are all sorts of jokes you can make about that, but I'm not going to make them right now. Okay. We want to identify the characters and roles. I'm going to take a few more minutes here, and then we're going to wrap it up and have time for Q&A. When you think about drafting the donor story, think about the characters and roles. Think about this donor. Think about who knows this donor. Maybe it's you. Maybe it's not you who knows that donor best. The donor must always be the hero. So as you think about this donor, think about, again, positioning the opportunity where they're able to step up and be the hero. They're able to solve the conflict. They're able to do something to move your school's mission forward. Without their role, it would not. They've got a cape on in this situation. They're the ones who can really step up and feel the reality of, hey, I helped make this happen. I take credit. Some donors are looking for that motivationally. Some maybe not as much. But at the end of the day, everybody wants to feel like they're investing in something that matters, right? So they're the hero. Who will be the wise advisor? Who will be the Yoda or the Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? Bless you. Who will be that person to kind of come alongside and help advise the donor? There's nothing, and this is a little sometimes hard for people like us who've worked in schools to hear, but there's nothing as powerful as what we would call an impassioned volunteer. If you're a staff member, if you're on the payroll of a school, let's just face it, we're in that role and we're getting paid for it. We love it, but we're getting paid for doing what we're doing, and that's fine. That's legitimate. But our asking a donor to be a hero is going to be different than if somebody else who is in some ways positionally more of an equal to that donor asks that same question. In other words, if another volunteer, if another donor comes along with you, maybe you help orchestrate and compose and conduct the story. You're the director to the conflict story, if you will, the storyboard, but you're not necessarily the wise advisor. Maybe that's someone else who's involved, who's coming along saying to this other prospective donor, I want you to know, I've made St. John's a priority in my giving. And I want you to know for this campaign, I've given more to St. John's than I've ever given anywhere else before. And I would love for you to consider doing that as well. That's powerful coming from someone who's not on the payroll. What other supporting roles are necessary? If any. Close friend, a credible leader, expertise. We all know those donors who only want to talk to the head of school or the board chair, right? You got to be sensitive. Who do they want to talk to? To whom would it be hard for them to say no? And keep in mind, more is not always better. It may be better to have 1, 2 people, the right people, than to have 3 or 4, 5, 6 people involved in an overall cultivation strategy. And then lastly, here's what I want to suggest you do. And we're going to kind of practice on what this could look like. Storyboard. Now, what do we mean by this? And again, none of this is brain surgery. You know this. It's not expensive either. It just takes some time and a little creativity, right? That a lot of times people just don't give to their donors because you're so busy unplugging toilets and teaching math to 4th graders or managing a team of other development staff. But imagine doing this for your top 5 or 10 donors. Imagine doing this for only 30 donors a year, for a year, and seeing what happens. Imagine between now and the end of the year doing this for one person. One person. What is storyboarding? It can be likened to taking your thoughts and the thoughts of others and making them visible by spreading them on a wall as you address your opportunities. Of course, you think of storyboarding, Disney is kind of the expert, right, in storyboarding. Anybody who writes a story, who makes a movie, who makes a film, a TV show or series, storyboards often visually and visibly what it is they're going to do. This is what we're suggesting. I mean, literally, you could do this in a conference room with some of those big kind of, sticky white pads on the wall. Or you can just do it with a piece of paper at your desk. Storyboarding for us is donor planning. Why do this? It's an outlet for creativity, to think about your donors in a different way. Pardon me. It forces you to think about where a donor is right now and where you want to take them. Now, you might right now be facing that shortfall between now and the end of the year. You might be tempted to go to, John and Jane Doe, who you know have significant financial capacity, right? Significant capacity. Just play it out for a bit here, right? Let's say you're on the verge of a capital campaign or a silent phase capital campaign, and John and Jane Doe have been identified as lead donors, or at least among the top 5%. We're talking 6-7 figure level. You've got a short-term gap between now and the end of the year. They've already given $50,000 to your annual fund. But you're tempted to go back to John and Jane Doe to help, you kind of just get us a little more to kind of help us close the gap. Now, you could do that. But if you're not thinking about the whole story, you might be tempted to do that. If you're thinking about the whole story, though, as to their involvement in your school, you might pause and say, wait a second. We really want to make sure they're on our radar when it comes to more significant giving down the road. We don't want to compromise what they could do because we've not thought of the bigger story just for the short-term gain. A lot of times it happens because so many schools are reactive in fundraising. Reactive. The sky's falling. We got an emergency. We got to find some money. It also provides a critical lens to view the entire plan, and it gives you a chance to really use those basic story elements for every donor. And it also implies not just a creative effort, but a collaborative effort. And this is fun. Trust me, this is fun. If you come up with a donor, and I hope this is something you will all do after today, come up with one donor at your school. Maybe they've already given this year. Maybe they're a growth prospect. Come up with one donor and get the right people in the room who know that donor. Find a little conference room in your school or get somebody's office with 2 or 3 people and put this donor's name on a whiteboard and say, here's what we know about them. Here's the good, bad, ugly. Here's how their kids do. Here's how long they've been at the school. Here's what their giving history's been. Here's what we know they love. Here's what we know they don't love. Here's what they think is a big problem at our school. Put it all out there. And begin to write a story. I mean, literally, put yourself in the director's chair. Pretend like you're in Hollywood. What do we want this person to do for our school? What could they do if they're a hero? What opportunity could we begin to present them in time to help them see the mission and vision of our school in a way they've never seen before? So that they could invest in the mission and vision of our school in a way that they've never done so before. And that collaborative, and quite frankly, it gets a creative juices flowing. It's collaborative, it's fun, and it's powerful. I'll just say a quick story of kind of a little step in a storyboard. So in this capital campaign leadership meeting I was in yesterday at a private school, which works for kids with learning differences, as part of our cultivation step, we had planned as part of the storyboard for one of the handful of families in the school who had some significant financial capacity to be a lead giver, potentially a top 10, top 30 giver in a capital campaign, like at the $250,000, $500,000 level, so kind of the lower level of lead giver. We're trying to figure out how to engage this family, right? They have a son, Junior, who's been at the school, and we wanted this junior student to come to our capital campaign leadership team and basically share his story. So part of our story was to ask this family and their son to come to our campaign meeting so he could share his story. After he shared his story, there was barely a dry eye in the room. This was a young man, good-looking guy, articulate, who, before he started at this school, he stuttered. He couldn't speak. They have video. He couldn't talk. And you see him 4 years later, and he is presenting himself to a group of people. He's articulate. He's funny. He's engaging. And the parents are there with him, and they're getting moved by seeing their son. And they say this. They say, this school has transformed our son. That's it. They use the word. They say, it was transformed. These people are part of the story of the school. Their son, his story is part of the school's story. By their participation in that small way, it didn't cost a dime. It was powerful not only for them, it was powerful for a couple of other members of the capital campaign leadership team who hadn't given yet, one of whom after that meeting gave $100,000. To realize this is real. This is really changing people's lives. You get the picture? A simple little step in a storyboard. Invite them to share their story in a meeting with others. I could give you other examples, but alas, the storyboard's primary value is that if it forces you to have a reasoned for and consistent approach to everything you do, the plot, the conflict, the resolution, the fulfillment. One other quick example, capital campaign, private school, not a sexy vision for the campaign. Build a middle school. Sorry, I didn't do a middle school. I don't know why there's several clients right now that are building middle schools. You've got poor middle school kids, you kind of need a fish or a fowl. You're betwixt between. But middle schools are important, very important. Middle school building, very important for this particular school. Quick story, we came up with a storyboard plan for a couple that were going to be high potential capacity givers to have them come to middle school, to live the life of a middle school student, to have a locker with a combo, and to get their bags, and to walk through the crowded hallways that they were currently using, and to basically see firsthand the problem with the current facilities. It worked. That was just the fruit of a collaborative, creative conversation. So what I want you to do, and can we take 2-3 minutes to do this, Tim, and then we'll wrap it up with some questions. Be done by 1. I want you to start a story. Just take 2 minutes to do this. Come up right now, because I want you to walk away with something actionable. Come up with the name of a prospect. Just right now, write it down in 2 words. I want you to write down the name of a prospect. Maybe ideally somebody you could storyboard between now and the end of the year. That doesn't need a lot of time. Ideally you need much more time for that. Maybe it doesn't have to be that, but just maybe it. Come up with a name, come up with a couple of characters you think have to be part of this effort to cultivate them, to bring them deeper into the mission of your school. I want you to think about the setting, even where the meetings might take place. Maybe you're like that middle school situation. Maybe you have a part of your facility. Maybe, Doug, your air conditioner is leaking, or is it your boiler room that your roof is leaking? I mean, you do this, I know many of you intuitively. If you have a leaky roof, it's snowing or it's raining and there's leak, dropping down through the roof, make sure that when you meet with that donor and you give them a tour, you spend some time right there so that they can see firsthand that water dripping on a kid's head. Something, really compelling. Have some, careful wet floor signs all over the place. You don't have to be so careful. You can't run in the halls anymore because of the leak. But think about the setting. Where do you want to invite that donor to come meet with you? Think about the plot. Where do you want to take them? Think about the conflict, making sure they see that conflict firsthand. And think about how it is you want to invite them to solve the problem. So take a minute and just do this, sketch it out. Anybody have an example that's come to mind even as we've been talking that you're like, you know what, I want to kind of apply this and try this for somebody? Anybody without naming names you'd want to share? Any kind of basic idea? Put anybody in the spot here. Okay.
We need an auditorium.
Okay.
And I have a person in mind I'd like to approach. Her son went to our school and was really good with drama and singing, and we have to put bleachers up and people sit in, and we have to perform in a gym essentially. So I'd like to get an auditorium done.
Nice. So you got some work to do.
I do.
Does this one donor potentially have the capacity to build the whole thing?
I don't think the whole thing,
Okay.
but I think that if she would be a big contributor, we just need to ask.
So y'all ask for what?
For transformation.
That's right. Don't ask too soon, though. Here's what I would suggest you ask for it, Nicole.
Yeah.
You know this. Maybe you don't. If you want money, ask for advice. If you want advice, ask for money. Right? One of the great things you could consider doing, Nicole, in your situation, you're looking to build an auditorium. Bring this person in early and say, here's what we're thinking about. What do you think? What do you think an auditorium should look like? Do you think we need it? Do you think it should be this size or that size? Look, I don't know anything about auditoriums and stages and curtains and all that. Maybe you do, but maybe this person does. Ask them for advice. Get them on an ad hoc committee, a design committee for your auditorium, which is a kind of test case. You get involved. They start to own it. Then when the time's right, yes, for their investor financially. Rachel.
Well, I'm the one who asked me for advice, please. So I've actually been on the receiving end of y'all.
Okay. Wait, of this same school? Or
No.
Okay.
In general.
Okay.
But it's like, when you ask for advice, be willing to do something with it. Because there's nothing more off-putting than, well, we want to hear your opinion, but it's already decided.
It's a great point. So you want to be genuine. If you're really open
Yeah.
for advice, you want to say, look, this is actually really meaningful. I want to have open ears to what you have to say. It's a good point.
Yeah, a lot of times they're far enough in the process where they pretty much made their plans.
Yeah.
So don't think you're.
It seems-
looking for advice.
It seems disingenuous. Well, and this is kind of like the worst situation, the worst setting in which to ask people for money, and I'm sorry if this might apply to some of you, it probably does, is to pay back debt. To fill a hole that somebody else made from the past that donor had nothing to do with. If you want to, okay, I'll give you a few freebies. If you really want to discourage and alienate potential donors, ask them to pay for debt, right? If you want to have a capital campaign that's for sure going to fail, launch one without your board's absolute complete support, not just verbally, but monetarily. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen in private school settings, boards launch into a campaign and say they support it. 6, 12, 10 months, 24 months later, 3 out of 10, 12 board members are actually financially committed to it. That you will not have success. I mean, I'm getting off topic a little bit. You won't have success. That's why I really think the health of your board is so critical to the health of your financial, fiscal development operation. That's another workshop. What other thoughts, other examples? Questions, feedback? I know we've covered a lot of ground. I hope you're saying Star Wars expert.
So we have probably a slightly different situation. We're a conglomeration of 3 urban Catholic schools.
Okay.
And so in total, for all 3 of those, our budget is about $6 million, and we receive about $175,000 in tuition. So,
From tuition paying parents.
correct,
So they pay pennies on the dollar. We subsidize obviously the large majority of tuition costs
correct.
through endowment, through annual
The
fund.
annual fund primarily.
Okay.
No, 2 schools don't have an endowment. One of them has a small.
Okay. Okay.
So how do we? And I get that people want to give to tangible things, and I
Right.
get people don't want to give to general operations. But our greatest need is paying our staff.
Yeah.
Our greatest need is general operations. So how do we make that, especially when it's a conflict that's never been solved?
That's a fine question. It's a real question. We know of a good number of schools that have the very noble mission of providing quality, private education to children who otherwise would never have access to it. And I'm thinking of a school in the Dallas area where basically parents pay maybe 5 pennies on the dollar and the other 95 cents are raised. Same kind of deal. Very hard. My former friend, or current friend, former head of school, got so burned. He's still my friend. But he was an academic. He loved education. Found himself head of this school, like one of yours. And after about 4 or 5 years, he's like, I just can't do it anymore. He goes, my job is a fundraiser. Because I'm an academic, I'm not a fundraiser. So I mean, without endowment, I mean, that's a hard steep hill to climb. Love talking further. I don't promise to have any immediate solutions. But put my colleague Karen Rose in the spot. Do you have any immediate solutions for our Forest Spring? How do you fund tuition? I mean, look, it's tough. It's tough. You can consider sponsor a student. You can do some other things. Look, at the end of the day, I'm really big, even in your case, to the extent you can, charge the actual cost to educate. Don't give parents a automatic discount. I'm again getting a little off topic here, but with tuition, so many annual funds have the challenges they do because they don't charge the tuition. That's another question.
Our
Another discussion.
kids
Your
are
kids can't pay. Okay, go
They
ahead. I know.
can't pay.
Your
They won't
situation's
come, they
different.
won't have a school.
Your situation's different. Let's talk after. I don't
Yeah,
know.
okay,
We'll talk.
great.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, if you have an answer, please. The St. John's one sponsor.
Well, I guess paying for teachers is the same thing. It's how you frame it. And so you said sponsor a student, but asking for a gift to provide 3 students with this opportunity is the same size gift as paying a math teacher. But people want to know that they're making an impact in the lives of other people. So they want to know that they're making an impact in the lives of these 3 students, not that they're paying this math teacher to drive a tour or whatever. And so
And I think what I'm asking specifically, because I get all of that, but there is this underlying drum in development of urgency, conflict resolution. Tangible,
Yeah,
urgency, conflict resolution. In a world where, I mean, it's never going to, and when I say it's never going to be resolved, the is we're going to have more rates next year than we do this year.
Yeah. Your conflict is ongoing and increasing.
Right.
Yeah.
So how do we not get fatigue?
Yeah.
For our conflict.
I think that's a great point. There's a different. I think everything we've talked about today really has more to do with specific kind of fundable opportunities, whether annual or capital. I think yours is really a different discussion. It's very complicated. I think it requires a lot of strategic thinking. But I'm glad you brought it up.
Now we have a question that came in online.
Yeah.
Any suggestions on how to approach high net worth individuals for estate or planned giving?
Great question. Hey, Greg Schuyler, I'm going to put you on the spot. You got some thoughts on that?
Could you repeat your question, Tim?
I sure can. Any suggestions on how to approach high net worth individuals for estate or planned giving?
So, as Kyle pointed out earlier in the presentation, I think really the key to that is that it's
probably.
Yeah.
Speak up.
Sorry about that.
Good. Maybe just to the microphone on the computer's working. So just
the mic's on. Okay. So as we discussed earlier in the presentation, I think the key to that is the depth of relationship with the donor. And if you think back to the pyramid analogy, and I'm glad Kyle used a pyramid because it wouldn't be a development presentation without one. We got to have a pyramid. But if you think, it is really true that if donors, regardless of whether they're high capacity or where they're at, for them to consider making the organization part of the sum total of their life, we're literally making them part of the family, really does belie a tremendous depth of relationship. And that comes from, I think, years of engagement, perhaps, or having them involved strategically with the mission, getting their advice, their input. But, it's the other thought that comes to mind is that probably those aren't checkbook transactions. They're going to come from assets if it's a high net worth individual, that might come from complex assets if they're selling a business, or if it's the family farm that's now worth 10 grand an acre instead of $500 an acre when mom and dad bought it back in the 20s. Get their advisors involved as well. Don't alienate the people that they have trusted relationships with their finances, and make that that can be part of the storyboard, is who are the other trusted advisors that need to be involved. But first, you've got to get to the point, before you involve any of those people, you got to get to the point where they're willing to have and want to have that discussion. And sometimes, at least this is my experience, I think we overcomplicate it. Planned giving has this mystique about, well, it's really complicated and there's crats and cruts and CGAs and, the alphabet soup stuff. And at the end of the day, it can be just as simple as, we really appreciate everything that you've done for the school over the years and your giving. Have you ever considered, putting Academy of Holy Angels into your estate plan? And that probably wouldn't be the question I'd lead with the first time you meet with the donor, but somewhere down the road, that's it's a fabulous question.
For everybody to know,
Right.
How do they include Holy Angels in their will? Are you good idea for all of them? I don't know, they want to consider it.
So, but to go back to today's topic, it's a matter of planning that all out, if you will, and if you want to, storyboard it about when's the right time to ask that question of the donor. So those would be.
Yeah, and I might just add, and appreciate, Greg, everything you said, and you touched on this. Asking someone to consider leaving a portion of their estate to your school is not the first gift that person's going to ever make, right? Obviously, in fact, studies show that the greater indicator of likely estate giving comes from those who've given even small amounts consistently over a long period of time, versus those that have perhaps given sporadic amounts, even at a high level, over periods of time. And so you might really consider, if you don't have an effective estate planning kind of plan in place, to look at longitudinal data of folks who've given. Look at people who've given, who have some capacity, who've given consistently over the years, and who are perhaps part of what some call the silver tsunami that's coming. There's going to be an amazing wealth transfer, and you all should be part of the beneficiaries of that. Yes, ma'am.
So I'm curious, though, about a nuance I heard in the question, because I think there's a difference in asking high net worth people to leave in their estate, because they're probably a little bit more sophisticated, and they've probably been hit up by numerous places, like Yale, and so they've had really sophisticated presentations about an estate gift with oodles of naming opportunities. And how do we, as a smaller entity, swim in that ocean?
Yeah, I mean, I can't. Good question. I can't answer that. I mean, I think it all comes ultimately down to relationship. I think again, we're not talking about hitting up, Warren Buffett or Bill Gates or Oprah to leave Academy Holy Angels
Once again.
in their estate. These are people in relationship to your school. Now, in your situation, it may be different.
We have some Warren Buffett.
Yeah, in your situation, it may be different. We have a foundation in Dallas that was started by an oil and gas billionaire with his first $5 billion. He basically took a tithe of that to start a foundation named after himself, but that's specifically, exclusively focused on at-risk, disenfranchised youth organizations, right? He's somebody who's going to give, potentially in his estate, he gives even now, to organizations with whom he may not yet have a personal, direct, compelling relationship. That's a little exceptional. I don't know if that was behind the question asked, but anyway, we don't want to get too far in the weeds on estate planning, but good stuff to be thinking about. And as Greg said, truly the culmination of a long-term relationship, usually with donors. What other questions might be out there?
One online. I want to make sure we get to this. It's been very popular in colleges to change the name of the annual fund to the student fund. Any thoughts?
Yeah, to me, that kind of gets back to the point that was made earlier about how you package and frame the need. When I was in a school setting, we called the annual fund after the name of our school. And I did that to kind of mimic this other school I mentioned, St. Mark's. They called their annual fund the St. Mark's Fund. We called our annual fund the Covenant Fund. Now, this is maybe a circuitous way to try to answer that question. I can't answer that question because every situation is going to be different. I don't think there's a blanket solution. But I do think words matter. Words matter. How you message your annual fund matters. How you label your annual fund matters. Here's just a quick anecdote that may speak to this question. Back in my day as head of school, in our annual fund, how we messaged that initially was mostly around student financial assistance. We gave about $600,000, $700,000 a year in financial assistance of a $6 million school fund at the time, school budget. And the bulk of our annual fund had to do with raising financial assistance for other students. That was pretty much it initially. And I'll never forget when a mom, full paying tuition mom, came up to me once and, a little snarky, but honest and truthful. She's like, wow, I'm kind of tired of this annual fund effort asking for full paying parents to basically subsidize other kids. When are we going to get like a new playground? When are we going to do something that actually enriches my kids' experience for whom I'm paying full tuition? Ouch. But she had a point. So we began to really rethink. Again, different situation, but for many of you, this may kind of feel close to home. How you package the need, right? Is it for financial aid? Is it to sponsor students? Is it at the end of the day because we're not charging enough tuition, so we're just trying to close a gap? Please don't call it the gap fund. I hate that. The gap fund. Why do you have a gap? Because you don't charge enough for tuition. Why not? Because we're afraid of scaring people away. Charge the value. Don't be ashamed to charge the value that your quality education warrants. And if more people have trouble, again, caveats.
I don't know.
Sorry.
We know.
Generally,
We know we're not.
for some of you, if people have trouble responding to that, if they need more assistance, then provide that. The school I was in, I'm speaking from my experience, limited that it is. We did a study of our budget and of our tuition. We realized that we're basically giving all of our families an 80% discount. we were at my board, despite my counsel not to do so, one year increased our tuition by like 16.7%. I was like, no. We were typically kind of 3 to 5% a year increase. And we did have a few families were called to homeschool. But, after that, but the majority, some did need more financial assistance, but guess what? The majority stepped up and can pay the bill. That really doesn't answer the question, Tim, but that's an attempt to not answer it.
That's response said you're not wrong, so don't worry about it.
All right. Any other questions from the webinar world?
No, we're okay right now.
Okay. And I want to be sensitive time. We all right with time, Michelle? Okay. Lisa?
Yeah.
No, I might get the thoughts on all this. And again, I know every one of your situations is different. Let's talk about the annual fund for a second. How many of you have an annual fund? How many of you would message your annual fund mostly to say address student tuition assistance or financial aid? Okay. How many of you do it more as kind of like an enrichment campaign, something like above and beyond what tuition revenue could provide? How many of you do it as something else, or have elements to it that are more fundable, like specific projects, capital improvements? Okay. Anybody else in the room? Tell me your name again. Y'all's names?
Laura and Judy.
Laura and Judy. I'm trying to be sensitive to y'all's situation because y'all are in a. Look, I guarantee you there are going to be other schools on the webinar who are. And look, I love this. In fact, I had this thought. Not that you want to know my thoughts, but I was at this meeting yesterday for this school with kids with dyslexia and significant learning differences. And I thought to myself, wouldn't it be cool? And maybe there's schools out there that are like this. Maybe there's some schools represented here that had a school for kids with significant learning differences in dyslexia, dysgraphia, and dyscalculia, who were like inner city, didn't have two pennies to put together. It was a private school, semi-fundable and sustainable. That's the part. And I'm like, okay, that's great. Yeah. I mean, if you have got a sugar daddy young, you're like, leaves like, $20 million and then down to fund the school forever. That's awesome, but that's just not typically reality. But are y'all kind of, in essence, that type of school? Which you're getting more noble compelling mission in a way, right? Yes, ma'am.
So how do you get around a school that has a mentality that is old-fashioned when it comes to fundraising or how to fundraise or what to fundraise for? I mean, that goes against the initial principles of why the school was founded.
Give me an example of what you're saying.
So, the school's initially founded to provide a Lutheran education for kids that need it,
Okay.
want it, and can't maybe afford it, so it's reasonably priced, and it starts in the basement of a church. They finally get their own building, but yet we still have this sort of old school mentality of we're just a Christian school. That's our mission. Not let's become more than we started as. Does that make sense?
Yeah, kind of.
I mean, it's just hard. I have students there, so of course I'm a parent, plus I'm a volunteer, and and I understand the way it was founded, but we are moving forward. We don't want to move backwards. And it's hard to attract students when we don't have the facilities that our competition has.
Yeah.
Because we have an old school mentality.
Yeah.
It was just started as a Christian school. Okay.
Yeah. Kind of, poor little circle wagons, we're barely making it. But hey, we're going to hang in there.
Yeah.
Anybody else been in a situation kind of like that? Is it mostly coming from your board, from staff, from parents?
I think
combination?
it's a variety.
Yeah.
I think it's mostly our board and some faculty. It's just, we're losing students because they're like, I'm going somewhere else because they offer more. We're competing with schools that are like, we compete. I don't know if anyone in here is from Providence Academy. That's, our kids co-op with Providence Academy, and it's a world of difference. They think we're farmers. They do, so they've got everything.
That is quite
Our
campus.
school looks like a warehouse. Yeah, it's beautiful.
That's an unusual situation.
Yeah, but they have everything. They do. They have the money to have everything.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Trying to think of how to. Yeah, look. Edifice envy is a real deal in private independent school.
It's a form of conflict. It can also be utilized, actually.
It can be.
But for someone who, why, it can be part of like, why don't we have that?
Yep.
you can help us make that.
Yeah.
We can keep, and some of this sort of keep up with the Joneses can be turned to a force of good.
I think you're right. Look, the school I was at for years as a head, we had portable buildings. We had portable buildings on 13 and a half acres in North Dallas. They were nice portable buildings with some decent, landscaping, but portable buildings. People are paying tuition prices for portable buildings. We didn't have a gym, for God's sake. And we had kids K-12. And parents are like, if we don't get a gym, our junior high kids are going to go somewhere else to high school. They need facilities. So we had a capital campaign. The first thing we built was a gym. Second thing we built was a high school building. Because the kids needed a point of arrival. They needed a reason to stay. So it's not uncommon for us to see in private independent schools often this parallel tension between development and enrollment. And I'll say this, and it seems kind of trite, but I do think it's true. The irony to me is that when schools lose sight of their mission, when they're really not serious about advancing their mission, and notice, advancing, that's what I learned, advancing the mission, not just kind of maintaining the mission. Because you're not maintaining, if you're not growing, you're dying. And we all know in the marketplace of education today, with public schools, charter public schools, online schools, home schools, the private independent school better wake up and realize you are in a business and you've got to compete for every student and every dollar you have. You know this. If you're not advancing your mission, you're retarding and kind of you're pushing back your mission, if I could put it that way. You got to advance your mission. If you're not advancing your mission, you're going to end up, ironically, having to focus on money. Because I think people want to be part of a school that feels like it really is advancing its mission with excellence. They're moving forward on every front with excellence. If that doesn't happen, inevitably you end up having enrollment issues. Inevitably you start dropping the bar in terms of admission and academic quality criteria. You just start getting warm butts in the seats who pay some version of tuition, however discounted. And then before you know it, you've completely changed the complexion of your school by virtue of the quality of the academics, or the lack thereof, the people in the school, the students, the faculty, because you've gotten so focused on the money. Focus on the mission, and I think the money will follow. Focus on the money, and you've compromised the mission. It seems trite, but I think it's true. So, complicated. Love to talk to you more if we could get some help, but yeah, it's tough, especially you have people who just don't want to, they don't care about excellence. They're just content with mediocrity. And that comes back to the board. Board members don't get on board. If you ever want somebody to come in and be real frank with your board, I'd love to do so. Because I can just get back on and explain this. Okay, what else? Did I see it?
Yeah. The only thing that I've been hearing a lot is funding things. And I came from healthcare education, but in working with donors, people want to make a significant impact in the lives of people. I don't want to build a gym or build a science wing. I want to invest in creative thinkers. I want to invest in kids who, have values and have an opportunity to go burn off some steam while they're doing very high level thinking. And so, and then the school I'm at, I've only been at it for 6 months, but some stewardship has been missing. And so in my role, most of my large asks have come from people who gave us the surprise $1,000 that I visit them regularly and tell them the impact that they're making. And so it makes it very easy. I guess I share that story on the back end on stewardship, and here's the impact that you're making here. We had this one student in our school that this is the family he comes from, and this is where he was, and this is where he's going. So surprisingly, we talk more about those stories of the kids because I feel like sometimes boards and people really want to focus on things in schools and not the student's story. You did mention one of those, but
well, but I'm glad you brought this up because I think it needs to be spelled out more clearly than I guess I made it. That in terms of advancing the mission of your schools, all of these things just got to be means to that. Because the things themselves, you're right. At the end of the day, replacing a leaky roof in itself doesn't necessarily have anything to do with Doug's school's mission, right? But the mission is not going to be able to advance and do what it needs to do in the lives of changed students if these practical realities are hindering them from doing so. So I think you're right, and I realize I hadn't even finished up the slides. We don't have time to get through all this, but the last point is kind of tied into what you just talked about. you've got to be able to show in stewardship the return on investment, the impact that this has made in truly changing lives. And at the end of the day, it is not about bricks and mortar. It's not about things. It really is about what is your mission doing in the lives of your students. The example of that student. But the example of so many other students where their lives have truly been radically impacted. That's why alumni are so powerful if you have them and if they're willing to play a role in your development strategy, because they're your mission incarnated and in real life. You'll have all this just if you want to use it as some tools to kind of explore the storyboarding process of having these transformational experiences that the donors could recount for years to come. As we wrap up, any final thoughts? I know we've gone a little long. I want to make sure we're down well before 1:30. You guys have been yeah, yes, sir. It's pretty right.
Too. So I'd say I have an observation in the recent people that what you just said that I think in the last few years, on the one hand, people say that I want to give to the thing, I want to touch the thing, and blah blah blah. But I think there's actually been a swing back to people wanting to invest in the institution or in the product, in a sense of that if you tell the story, that they're willing to do it in an unrestricted or support the operations way. And I think the reason for that is that sort of, although the memory of this is dissipating, kind of going through the Great Recession and people sort of watching their nest eggs kind of go. I mean, people experience hardship financially, and then sort of they look at the places that matter to them and they want to make sure that they remain strong. Or it just seemed to be, in addition to some of our, I think more parents were receptive to financial aid stories than they were 8 to 10 years ago. This is anecdotal. I can't produce hard and fast. I mean, we've seen growth, I guess, but that would be. But I just wonder if you have any observation. I do feel like sometimes there become, an idea becomes, it's carried to its illogical extreme. So I sort of call it the putting your name on a basket qualification of fundraising.
Right.
I need to know exactly where my money went. Well, it went into the mission of educating kids.
Right.
I mean, you don't really need to know where your $50. I mean, I'm not going to show you a through line that says it was in Jesse's check.
Right. Right.
That's not what this is. Now, if you're going to do something more significant, we can talk. But I think there's a part that says, even the story of the annual fund is, sort of like all you're doing is investing in our mission. That's it.
Yeah.
That if we don't do this, our school's 20% less than it was. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's just transforming kids' lives and making sure that that's what it is.
Yeah.
So if you're okay with that, go ahead and get on board.
Yeah. Well, it gets back to the pyramid, so to speak, because I think how you message kind of at the bottom, if you will, of that pyramid in a bigger setting, annual appeal, events, etc., is going to be different because the ROI and the ability to kind of communicate back to those donors is going to have to look different than it would with a handful of those at the top of the pyramid. And so I think with everything we've really tried to focus on today, crafting a donor story, we're talking about that handful of donors that you can really sit down and cultivate those meaningful relationships with, where before you ask them, whether you're asking them for capital, whether you're asking them to sponsor a student, whether you're asking them to subsidize a teacher's salary, you're asking them when you eventually ask them because you know what it is that moves their heart relative to the mission of your school. And it could be. I had a school just this week where they got a donation for the capital campaign, but the donor said, look, if you use it for the capital campaign, great, if you need it for operations to do that, that's awesome, right? Every CFO at a school would love the understanding. But you get to the point of, look, it's really about the heart of the donor. We can't blanket it and say it's all about a concrete fundable project. For some it may be, but it's really all about what it is they love, what it is they want, how they want to invest their money. And then you give them an opportunity that resonates with that. And the beauty of this is with every donor it's going to be different. So we're really talking about kind of a selective approach to a handful. The strategy for a broader base, I think, has got to be wrong. Final thoughts, questions? Guys, I hope y'all have a good next episode. It's going to be crazy. Thank you for taking time to be with us here today, next week or two. Maybe second only to May in my experience, the craziest time of the year. But I hope you do get some R&R over the holiday break. And I hope you have a good end of the year in terms of push. And I hope some of this is helpful as you continue the good work of advancing your school's mission. So congrats for the work you do. Keep it up. I commend you all. And again, honored to have been with you. Thank you.
Just a couple of final announcements. Thank you very much to Mission Advancement Professionals for sponsoring this event. And Kyle, thank you for sharing your expertise and engaging us in conversation. Just a few reminders. We introduced our new STEM grant program on November 5th. So just encouraging all the member schools to take a look at that. If you have any questions about any of projects that you're interested in applying for a grant and need some additional conversations, feel free to reach out to myself, Lisa Bosbeek, or Beth Murphy, our STEM program manager. The letters of interest for those are due on January 15th, with the final grants due on February 19th. And then the actual grants are awarded at the Independent School Awards scheduled for April 28th. So some things to mark on your calendars. Just another opportunity for you to communicate at your schools. Our next professional development training will be on January 17th, and it is titled Embracing the Maker Movement at Your School, Designing a Purposeful Maker Space. Beth Murphy, our STEM program manager, will be leading that along with some program staff at some of our member schools. Ann Doherty from Vanille St. Margaret's will also be assisting her, as well as some other people. So we're really excited to share that content with you. And then the next admissions and marketing session will be on March 21st. More to come on that. You'll be getting more information on all that in our e-newsletter and special emails from us. Just to wrap up on this, I will be sending out an evaluation you'll receive later today or tomorrow morning. Please take some time to fill that out. That really helps us learn about how we can better serve you as our member schools. If you have ideas for content, please share those as well. There will also be a link to the webinar of today. If you have interest in going back and listening to the recorded webinar, you'll have the ability to do so. And then one final announcement, we have scheduled our STEM Education Conference for this year. Thankfully, to our host school, Vanille St. Margaret, this year, we're excited to be able to announce that conference will be held on August 8th. So please start to share that with your school teachers and people within your school interested in STEM education.
That information to be sent out, though, as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We just locked that in the last couple of days. It will be all announced many, many times.
Okay, great.
But we're excited to be able to show the school the great work Vanille is doing, and we're thankful for them hosting us at the conference. Thanks for being here today. Oh, one last thing. I'm sorry, Kim.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Oh, no, was the audio okay with the web?
Yeah.